In this video, we're going to be discussing some exercises and postures that you can use to increase your mobility and ease of access when it comes to seated meditation positions, beginning with the Yogi squat or malasana, which is essentially just a deep squat. So heels about hips width distance apart, feet roughly 45-degree angle from the body. Weight back and down, sitting as low as possible, maintaining as straight a line as you can from the low back up into the crown of the head. Roughly, I'd say you want to spend about 3 to 10 minutes here a day on average if you're trying to find, a certain increase in mobility and depth in this posture, which will help you greatly when it comes to seated meditation positions. And it's also important to note that this depth is not realistic for everybody. I'll show you from the sides, you get another view. Wherever you are, from here, down to here, just focus on the basics, focus on good posture, and over time, the depth will come. Moving on to the Cobbler's pose. So coming down to a seat, we bring our feet together in front of us. Shift this way. Feet to touch. Pull them in as close to the body as you can. Wrap the hands around the toes. From here, roll the shoulders up and back. With the hands, pull the chest forward. Again, finding that long, tall spine. And then you can bounce through the hip creases here to begin. Roughly like 50 or so times. It's kind of what I stick to. And then once you're done that, we're going to fold forward over the feet. But it's important to note here that you want to stay active with this movement, actively pushing the feet together as well as pushing the feet together, pushing the knees down as much as you can, and then folding forward, moving through the hip crease here forward as much as you can. And this activation of pushing the feet together and also pushing the knees down will help you find a little bit more range forward. Then you can also bounce here into the stretch and also just stay a little static and passive. Using a combination of the passive stretching in this movement, just hanging out in it like this, as well as the active movements, bouncing the knees, the force between the feet and pushing the knees down will help you find greater depth and greater mobility in this pose over time. Next, we have Hero's pose. This is a meditation posture all on its own, but we're going to move a little deeper into it. So we're going to separate the feet out to the sides, keep the knees relatively close together and touching, and sit back and down between the feet. Now this is level 1. You can just remain here if this is comfortable. From here, you start to slowly lower backwards first, just using the hands. If the hands is comfortable, you can lower down onto the elbows. And of course, if the elbows are comfortable, lower all the way down onto the back. And then from each position, the active movement in this stretch is going to be squeezing the glutes and pulsing upward with the hips. I'll do this from my elbows. So from this position, pushing down into the elbows, slight opening in the chest, and then squeeze the glutes and lift the hips. And you just slowly pulse in and out of that movement. Roughly 5 to 10 times, but that's really up to you. Come back to your knees, and that's the hero's pose. Next one we have is Gomukhasana, or cow face pose. Sounds a little weird. From kneeling, shift the hips over to the right, feet to the left. Now take the top leg, bring it up over top of the bottom leg, trying to align the knees as close as you can. From here, a little tip on how to get deeper is just to shift forward onto the knees. You can bring them closer together and then sit back and down. Aiming to have both sit bones in contact with the floor. This can be a little bit of an uncomfortable position if you're new to it, so don't worry on trying to stack the knees right away. This is again something over time you'll deepen into. From here, I like to place the hands onto the feet, lift the chest a little bit. Again, find that long and tall posture, and then just breathe. And you'll feel the opening in the outer hips as you sit here. If you want to move deeper, you can fold forward over the knees. You'll definitely feel a bit of a deeper stretch. This is one of those exercises you can sit in for roughly about a minute on each side. Again, we have the left leg on top now, but you can switch to the other side. After you do the left, do the right side. Always balance it out. A little bit of a passive stretch, good opening into the outer hips. Moving on to a very common, popular position, pigeon. So first, bring your right shin parallel to the top of the mat, or as parallel as you can get it. If this is too much, the more you bring your heel in towards the body, the easier it tends to be on the body. So once you find your base position, try to square your hips and your chest towards the front of the mat. So pull forward on the left hip, pull back on the right, square the chest off. Remain here for a little bit. Just breathe, allow yourself to sit in the stretch and ease into it. Keeping the right foot flexed, and it can help to push down with the right knee. You can do it just with the power of your own knee, or you can use a little bit of force with the hand. And as you're ready, slowly fold forward over the front leg. Come down into the forearms. You can stay up on the hands, or you can come all the way down, resting the chest on the front leg. This is the passive part of the exercise. A good little active movement that I like to do is from this tall position in the beginning, tuck the back toes under, twist to the side, allowing the heel to drop down to the mat, gaze to the back of the room, and then pull yourself back forward, pulling the left hip forward and down closer to the mat, and then just moving in and out. This is a really helpful exercise of finding that scissoring in the hips and getting a little deeper, especially into the hip flexor on whichever leg is doing the pulling. So from pigeon, we move into double pigeon. And from here, we can just swing the back leg forward and up. and we bring it to rest over top of the front leg. Here, I'll show you from this side. It looks like this. Now this can always be a very tight position for some. I was really not a fan of this posture in the beginning because of how much sensation you can feel, but meet your body where it's at and only move into it as far as is comfortable. So on this side, we have the left heel resting on top of the right knee, and then both shins parallel. And we simply sit like this, trying to deepen into this posture by bringing the shins closer together over time, and as you ease into the stretch, slowly moving deeper and deeper. And it's good to note that this is definitely pretty deep for some. If this full position is a little inaccessible, you can always have the legs farther apart. You can simply sit like this in a cross-legged position until something like double pigeon feels more accessible. And of course, you want to do pigeon and double pigeon on both sides as well. Moving into the lizard. For lizard, I'll show you with the left leg forward, just so you get a better view. So bring our left foot up to the top of the mat, extend the right leg back, and then plant the hands on the inside of the left foot. And what you're working into here is the mobility through the hip on the left side, trying to find more depth, and then also a little bit of a stretch into the right hip flexor. So this being the most accessible level to this posture, and then from here you can lower down onto the forearms if you have the mobility, and even, down onto the chest if you have really good mobility. But in general, I like to just stick on the forearms. And then you don't have to stay completely static in this posture. Move into it a little, find some sticky areas, and just explore the posture and find a little bit more mobility in the hips. And you can stay passive in this one also. And there also is an active version of just lifting and lowering into the posture. This one's really good at moving in to the hip flexor on whichever leg is extended back. And then repeat on the right side. One of our final exercises we're going to be doing from the back. Should be a pretty familiar exercise for some. It's just on the back, figure four. So we bring one heel up, whichever you want to start with, and bring it on to the top of the opposite knee. And we can simply stay here using the hand to push the knee away from us. Always keep the foot flexed to protect this knee joint. Again, just opening up into the hip. You can stay here or move a little bit deeper by lifting the knee of the planted foot, and then actively push this knee away from you while pulling this knee towards you. And you'll feel the opening in the hips. And this again can be passive and active. You can pull this in and release it, or simply just hold the stretch. Another variation on this I do enjoy, instead of pulling this knee in, leave the foot planted and pull this whole leg in. Right hand comes to the top of the foot, Left hand grabs the heel, and then you just pull the leg in towards the body. And then with the leg in towards the body, just breathe deeply, allowing the body to release into the stretch. And then repeat on the other side. I think it is really important to note that for all these stretches, the breath is a pivotal component. Really deep, long inhales and exhales will make it much easier to reach deeper depths and find more mobility in almost all of these exercises. So outside of these postures and movements, the one thing that I think is really, really beneficial to finding greater ease and comfortability in seated meditation positions is just to spend a lot more time in them. When I began my meditation journey, sitting on the floor for 10 minutes was often uncomfortable. So I would spend at least half an hour a day in different seated meditation positions just to open up into the hips and build that, stamina and easeful feeling in all of these seated postures. I hope you take 1, 2, all of these exercises, combine them into a small little routine, find your own other movements. These are just some of my favorite ones, and use them to your benefit. Use them to enhance your meditation practice and, your overall health of your body and your hips. They're a very important joint. So working on all these movements will not only benefit just your meditation practice, but your mobility and your overall health in everyday life.